In the vast, untamed wilderness of Maine, where ancient forests stretch for miles and mountains stand watch over quiet valleys, something extraordinary may walk among the trees. For generations, people have whispered about tall, elusive figures, hairy, upright beings that leave behind massive footprints and fleeting glimpses in a corner of the eye. We call them Bigfoot or Sasquatch. But here in Maine, the stories run deeper than any modern legend. They echo through indigenous traditions, colonial journals, old newspaper reports, and everyday encounters from folks just like us, hunters, hikers, and neighbors in the Appalachian foothills. This isn't a tale meant to scare you away from the woods. Quite the opposite. It's an invitation to explore one of America's last great wild places with fresh eyes and open wonder. Over the course of this exploration, we'll journey from ancient Wabanaki stories to modern-day sightings right here in Maine. Along the way, we'll ask, what if these beings are more than myth? And what can they teach us? Stick with us, because in these mountains, the line between legend and reality might be closer than you think. Long before European settlers arrived, Maine was home to the ancient Wabanaki peoples, the people of the Dawnland. This confederacy includes the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Nalisit, Abenaki, and Micmac. These nations held an intimate knowledge of the land. The forests and mountains, rivers and lakes were their ancestral home, lived in by the Wabanaki for millennia. Their oral traditions speak of powerful beings that shared the forests with them. One of the most enduring figures is Pamula, sometimes described as a guardian or trickster of the deep woods around Mount Katahdin. Stories portray Pamula as a tall, powerful entity, part of the spiritual balance of the natural world. Elders shared these tales around campfires, not to frighten, but to teach respect for the wilderness and its unseen inhabitants. High in the mountains of northern New England, the Wabanaki people also speak of the Menogemisak, the shadow giants. Also called shadow people, these enormous humanoid beings were said to live alongside the Wabanaki in the rugged mountains, especially the Green Mountains of Vermont, the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and western Maine. Their name comes from Manaji, meaning giant, and Masik, meaning shadow, because they were rarely seen, always just out of sight. Imagine a race of giant, shadowy figures roaming the deep woods, tall, powerful, and incredibly stealthy. Much like Bigfoot or Sasquatch stories, they left signs of their presence but stayed hidden from most humans, living alongside the people of the Dawnland for generations. These legends remind us of the mystery and power still alive in our northern forests. They teach respect for the land and the unseen beings who share it, perfect wisdom for anyone exploring or living in the ancient, majestic mountains of Maine. For centuries, the Abenaki and other Wabanaki nations have told stories of a giant who walks the woods deep in the forests of Maine. Called the Forest Wanderer by some Abenaki, this massive humanoid creature was said to leave enormous footprints in the snow and mud, a giant hairy being that roams the Appalachian Mountains and northern woods. Sound familiar? Descriptions match modern accounts: tall, covered in hair, incredibly strong, and elusive. Like broader Algonquian Wendigo tales, it is often portrayed as a powerful forest spirit, sometimes a warning, sometimes simply a wanderer sharing the wild with our ancestors. The Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, and other Wabanaki nations carry similar stories of these hairy giants. Related legends include the Kiwakwar or Chinoo, enormous, sometimes ice-hearted beings said to roam the winter forests. While some versions carry cautionary elements about survival and community, they highlight a deep cultural awareness of mysterious humanoid presences in the landscape. Kiwakwar lore shares elements with traditional Wendigo stories, in which humans are sometimes transformed into beasts by evil spirits, cannibalism, or great moral failings. Yet the descriptions of hairy, elusive, howling creatures are strikingly reminiscent of modern Bigfoot encounters. These weren't always portrayed as monsters. Many accounts frame them as part of the living web of nature, powerful relatives or spirits worthy of reverence. Across broader indigenous traditions in North America, similar hairy man or wild man stories appear in many nations. In the Northeast, they often describe shy, intelligent beings who avoid humans but leave signs of their passing. Bent saplings, large tracks, or unusual calls echoing through the valleys. These legends predate the term Bigfoot by centuries and remind us that curiosity about these beings is woven into the very history of this continent. Here in Maine, with its millions of acres of dense, rugged forest, it's easy to imagine why such stories took root. The land itself feels alive, full of hidden hollows, remote ridges, and ancient trails where humans are still visitors. These early accounts set the stage for a pattern that continues to this day. Respectful glimpses of something remarkable that chooses when and if to be seen. As European settlers began pushing deeper into Maine's interior in the 1700s and 1800s, reports of strange, hairy, upright figures started adhering alongside the older Wabanaki stories. These were not yet called Bigfoot. Settlers and woodsmen often described them as wild men, gorillas, or Indian devils, but the details sound remarkably familiar to us today. One of the highlights of this era was a stunning find in 1825 in Deer Isle, Maine, as reported by George L. Hosmer's book, An Historical Sketch of Deer Isle, Maine. He wrote that a massive storm swept through the area with violent winds and torrential rain. A large old hardwood tree was blown down by the heavy storm. 2 workers arrived to clear the rubble and the roots. As they dug, their shovels hit something strange. They cleared the dirt away and found beneath the roots of the tree 2 ancient skeletons. One skeleton was of a normal-sized human, presumably of an indigenous individual who lived there many years ago. The other was of a giant humanoid, estimated to be about 8 feet tall. According to one version, the workers continued to pull the dirt away and discovered a copper dart head embedded in the creature's chest. Witnesses imagined that what they found were the remains of an ancient battle, the smaller figure delivering a mortal wound to the larger creature, but falling in battle before the large humanoid succumbed to its wounds. There is no known record today of what was subsequently done with these skeletons, or the alleged copper dart head, and their discovery has become just a footnote in local history. One of the earliest well-documented accounts of an encounter with a live creature comes from 1855. J.W. McHenry of Waldoboro wrote to the Thomaston Journal describing the capture of a young, ape-like creature. According to the report, the being refused meat but eagerly ate nuts and berries. It was said to cry out in a way that sounded almost human, perhaps calling for its mother. Stories like this, while extraordinary, were taken seriously enough to appear in local newspapers of the time. In 1886, newspapers across New England reported a dramatic encounter north of Moosehead Lake. 3 men had set up a hunting camp in the thick woods. 2 went hunting, and when they returned, they found their 3rd companion dead. Witnesses described a hairy, 10-foot-tall wild man with 7-foot arms. A posse was formed to hunt down the creature. They found and destroyed the wild man. The story, first published in the Waterville Sentinel, described the creature in terms that today would immediately suggest a Sasquatch. While we may never know the full truth behind such sensational reports, they show how frequently these encounters were being noted in the backwoods. In the late 1800s, sightings continued to surface. In 1895, near South Gardner, a group of women and children were picking blueberries in the woods. They looked up and were stunned to see a large, hairy monster running at them on two legs. They described it as looking like an immense African gorilla. The creature passed by them, leaving a large footprint the size of a saucer and letting out unearthly shrieks that echoed through the woods. These early colonial and 19th century reports share consistent themes: tall, bipedal, hairy beings living in the remote forests and mountains. Witnesses were often loggers, hunters, and families simply going about daily life in an untamed wilderness. Maine's vast, sparsely populated landscape, with its thick woods, rugged mountains, and limited roads, provided plenty of space for such creatures to remain hidden from most eyes. Importantly, many of these accounts were not told as scary campfire tales meant to frighten. They were practical reports from hardworking people who encountered something they could not easily explain. These stories form an important bridge between ancient indigenous knowledge and the modern sightings we still hear about today. As we move into the 20th century, reports of Bigfoot-like creatures in Maine didn't fade. They continued and even accelerated, often from credible everyday people who had no reason to invent such stories. In the 1970s and 1980s, sightings picked up around popular wilderness areas like Baxter State Park and Mount Katahdin. In 1982, birdwatchers on the north side of Mount Katahdin reported seeing two large, upright, black-haired figures walking across a field holding hands. They described them as gorilla-like, but clearly bipedal. A few years later, Boy Scouts on a trail spotted a reddish, hairy creature digging in the dirt that gave off a strong, unpleasant odor before running off. One of the more memorable cases from this era is the 1988 Maine Ridge Monster in Penobscot County. A father and son fishing along an old logging road found a remote cabin with a logbook filled with entries about a large, unusual creature. On their way back, the father saw an 8-foot-tall, heavily built, hairy being leaning against a tree, watching them calmly. The encounter left a lasting impression. More recently, in 2006, near Ellsworth, a motorist driving on Route 1A reported seeing a tall, reddish-brown, hairy bipedal creature crossing the road at night. The figure's size, posture, and movement left the witness convinced they had seen something far larger and more human-like than any known animal in the region. Then, in February 2007, a 27-year veteran school bus driver in Freedom had a memorable morning encounter. While driving home around 9 a.m., she watched a tall, bipedal, hairy creature step out onto the road in front of her bus. The being paused briefly before continuing across and disappearing into the woods. The driver's calm, detailed account, from a professional who traveled those roads daily, added significant credibility to the growing list of modern Maine sightings. Sightings continued into the 21st century, often involving tracks, vocalizations, or fleeting glimpses in remote areas. Then, a local teenager and his father, alerted by strange noises, captured cell phone footage of a tall, dark, bipedal figure walking through the woods. The video, along with accompanying footprints and an eerie howl recording, drew national attention. Researcher Bill Brock, initially skeptical, said the evidence was among the most compelling he had seen. While opinions remain divided, the Turner footage remains one of Maine's most discussed pieces of visual evidence. In September 2020, south of Bryant Pond in Oxford County, multiple witnesses reported a clear daylight sighting along power lines. Several people watched a large, upright, hairy figure moving through the area in broad daylight. The multi-witness nature of the encounter, combined with the open terrain, made it one of the more compelling reports of the decade. Throughout the 2010s and 2020s, credible reports kept coming in. One notable account involves Cody, a Maine Bureau of Parks and Lands employee who had a close encounter while working in the Stratton area near Bigelow Preserve. His story, shared in Bigfoot research circles, describes a powerful, hairy figure that left him with a profound sense of being observed in the deep woods. More recently, in February 2025, large tracks were discovered during a snowstorm near Tenyon Hill Preserve in York County. The prints stood out clearly in the fresh snow, sparking interest among local researchers. And just months later, in August 2025, a couple driving on State Route 26 near Grafton Notch State Park reported a daylight sighting of a large, brown, bipedal creature crossing the road in front of them, one of the clearest recent visual encounters on record. Suspected Bigfoot tracks were also found in the Chain of Ponds area of Franklin County. Casts made of these tracks were donated to the International Cryptozoology Museum located in Bangor, Maine. 17H tracks have also been found in the area of Wyman Lake, also in Franklin County. Other modern reports from Aroostook, Oxford, and Piscataquis counties describe wood knocks, tree structures, powerful vocalizations at night, and brief sightings by hunters, campers, and drivers. Families living in isolated areas near the Canadian border have described multiple incidents over time on their properties. What stands out across these 20th and 21st century accounts is the consistency. Large, hairy, upright beings that move with surprising agility through dense Maine forest, often avoiding direct confrontation, but leaving clear signs of their presence. In a state with over 17 million acres of forest, much of it remote and lightly traveled, it's not hard to see how such creatures could thrive largely unseen. These aren't just old legends anymore. They are ongoing experiences shared by Mainers from all walks of life. Whether you interpret them as misidentified bears, hoaxes, or something extraordinary, the sheer number and sincerity of the reports invite us to keep an open mind when we step into these ancient woods.
Is Bigfoot real? I think so. I hope so. The evidence is very compelling. It would be wonderful if it were true. It would be one of those great mysteries of nature that kind of just proves that maybe we don't fully understand everything. We don't know everything. I say I hope this creature exists. I see the legends around the world, the Chinese Yeren, the Australian Yowie, the Almasty of the Caucasus and Central Asia, the Sasquatch of North America. There are all these legends that come down to us from thousands of years of civilization. Then we have so many credible sightings in the last 200 to 300 years, right up through modern day. Even if we discount some as fakes or misunderstandings, there's still an overwhelming amount of witnesses. But my hesitation comes from the fact that I've never seen one. In the absence of convincing physical evidence, I can't say for sure. I want to believe they exist, but at the same time I want to follow the facts to their logical ultimate conclusion, whatever that might be. We may even have physical evidence already. If hominids like the Denisovans were covered in hair, they would make a very convincing Sasquatch. In the example of the Denisovans, we don't really know how much of their body was covered with hair. What we have are interpretations of a handful of bones. Maine itself would be such an ideal habitat for them. And there have been stories of their existence here from before written history right through present day. One of the challenges I believe researchers face is that the habitat for these creatures has steadily diminished over the last couple thousand years as humanity has expanded across the globe. This means that their numbers have necessarily diminished. Fewer numbers means that these creatures will be harder to find, and that finding physical remains may be very unlikely at this point. In fact, I believe these creatures may be close to extinction. Here in Maine, we have a state which is 90% forested, a state with a long, rich history of encounters beginning in prehistory with Native American legends and continuing to modern times, and a state where there are vast tracts of wilderness which rarely see a human being. Right here in Franklin County, we have the northern reaches of the Appalachians with mountains in the 4,000 to 5,000 foot range. Based on stories of encounters even in recent times, we might conclude that they're still here, living in remote areas of the Maine wilderness.
So, what are we to make of all these stories? As with Bigfoot reports across North America, the evidence in Maine remains circumstantial but intriguing. Numerous footprints over the decades, eyewitness accounts from credible people, strange vocalizations recorded in the woods, and occasional tree structures or broken branches in remote areas. No definitive DNA or clear high-resolution video has emerged yet, but the consistency of the descriptions across generations is hard to ignore. Skeptics offer reasonable explanations: misidentified black bears standing upright, hoaxes, or the power of suggestion in a state known for its wild places. And they're right to be cautious. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. At the same time, many longtime Mainers who have spent decades in these woods insist that what they saw was no bear. Mainers growing up in remote areas know what a bear looks like. Maine's landscape makes the possibility especially compelling. Nearly 90% of the state is forested, one of the highest percentages in the United States. Vast stretches of northern and western Maine see very few human visitors year-round. These remote woodlands, mountains, and river systems could easily hide a small, elusive population of large creatures. Some wonder how a large, omnivorous being could survive Maine's harsh winters. But consider the mighty moose. These herbivores routinely reach 1,000 pounds or more by foraging on twigs, bark, aquatic plants, and vegetation. A smart, opportunistic omnivore with a thick coat of hair would have even more dietary flexibility, from berries and nuts in summer to scavenging or hunting smaller game when needed. If creatures like this exist, Maine's abundant natural resources could support them comfortably. Beyond the physical evidence, these stories have had a real cultural impact. They appear in local folklore, books like Shadows in the Woods, community Bigfoot festivals, and online discussions. They inspire curiosity and a deeper appreciation for the wild places we still have. For many Mainers, the idea of Sasquatch isn't about fear, it's about wonder. It's a reminder that our forests still hold mysteries, and that humility and respect should guide us whenever we step into the woods. At the end of the day, whether these beings are flesh and blood creatures or powerful legends born from our deep connection to the wild, they remind us of something important. The Maine woods are still full of mystery and beauty worth protecting. If Bigfoot exists, I hope we approach any discovery with respect and care. And if not, the search itself has already given us something valuable, a greater sense of wonder and stewardship for these ancient forests. So next time you're hiking a trail in the Appalachians, or sitting by a quiet pond in Franklin County, or by a stream in Aroostook, take a moment to listen. You might just hear or see something extraordinary, or simply appreciate the incredible wilderness we're lucky to call home. Thanks for joining me on this journey through Bigfoot in Maine. If you've had your own experiences in the woods, share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. Hit like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more Bigfoot lore and Maine wilderness content, and I'll see you next time. Until then, stay curious, stay respectful, and enjoy the outdoors.